Emily's Lost Phone Adventure. It was a cloudy afternoon. Emily had just arrived in town to visit her old friend, Tom. They planned to meet at their favorite cafe, a small, warm place on a quiet street. When Emily walked in, she saw Tom sitting by the window. He looked worried. His hands kept moving to his pockets as if he was searching for something important. She sat down across from him, watching his restless movements. "What happened to your phone?" she asked, tilting her head in curiosity. Tom sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Oh no, I lost it." His voice was full of frustration as he looked outside. He tapped his fingers on the table, clearly annoyed. "I feel like going for a walk, but I lost my phone somewhere." Emily's eyebrows lifted slightly. "When did you arrive?" she asked, trying to understand what had happened. Tom leaned back in his chair and let out another deep sigh. "I got here this morning," he said. His shoulders slumped. "I haven't been feeling well, so I wasn't careful. Maybe I dropped it on the way here." Emily gave him a reassuring smile. "Don't worry." She picked up her bag and adjusted the strap over her shoulder. "Can you help me with this? Let's go find it." Tom hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He slowly stood up, his expression still a little unsure. "Yeah, that's a good idea." They left the cafe and started walking down the street. Tom looked around, trying to remember where he had been earlier. His eyes scanned the sidewalk and the benches. After a few minutes, Emily suddenly stopped and pointed. Her face lit up. "That's where I found it!" On a bench near the park, Tom's phone was sitting there, safe and untouched. His eyes widened in relief as he quickly stepped forward. "Oh, thank you." His voice was full of gratitude as he grabbed the phone. He held it tightly as if it might disappear again. "All I need is time to find it, and you helped me." Emily laughed at his reaction. "You're lucky no one took it," she teased, crossing her arms playfully. Tom chuckled, finally slipping the phone safely into his pocket. "Yeah, I guess I am." His shoulders relaxed for the first time that day. Feeling much better, they walked back to the cafe. The warm smell of coffee and freshly baked bread greeted them as they stepped inside. Tom looked more at ease as he sat down. Back at the cafe, Tom stirred his coffee slowly, his fingers tracing the edge of his cup. He looked calmer now. "When are you leaving?" he asked after a moment of silence. His voice was softer now, more relaxed. Emily took a sip of her drink before answering. "Tomorrow morning," she said. She glanced out the window, watching the people walking by. "When is the best time to visit?" "Maybe next time. I'll stay longer." Tom nodded, thinking for a moment. "When are you going to call me?" he asked, looking up at her. Emily set down her cup and smiled. "I'll call you tonight," she promised. "Let me know when you want to meet again." Tom smiled back, tapping his fingers on the table. "Great. Let me think about it. Maybe we can have coffee next time." Emily chuckled as she leaned back in her chair. "Let me see if I can do it. Do you feel like going somewhere now?" Tom looked outside. The street was wet, and people were walking with umbrellas. The air felt fresh from the rain. "That's because it rained this morning," he said, watching the raindrops slide down the window. Emily smirked, setting her cup down. "I wasn't talking about the rain. I meant I've been busy all day." She stretched her arms and let out a small sigh. "But, I used to live in New York, and it rained a lot there." Tom stirred his coffee again, lost in thought. After a pause, he looked at Emily with curiosity. "New York, huh?" He tilted his head. "Did you used to play soccer?" Emily raised an eyebrow at his sudden question. "Why do you ask?" "Are you thinking of playing?" she teased, a playful grin forming on her lips. Tom laughed at her reaction. "No, I was just wondering." He took a sip of his coffee, still smiling. Emily shrugged. "Yes, I did. I didn't used to like coffee, but now I do." At that moment, the waiter approached their table and spoke quickly, listing the dessert options. His words came out so fast that Tom blinked in confusion. He turned to Emily. "Could you repeat that, please?" he asked, looking slightly embarrassed. Emily smiled at the waiter, then turned to Tom. "Sure, that's how we do it here." After ordering a slice of cake, Tom leaned back in his chair. His fingers tapped lightly on the table as he spoke. "Couldn't you come a little earlier next time?" Emily sighed, shaking her head. "I would have, but I was busy today." Tom nodded in understanding. "I could have finished my work yesterday, but I didn't." Emily grinned. "I couldn't have found your phone without you." The cafe was now filled with soft music and the sound of people talking. The atmosphere was warm and relaxed. Tom took a deep breath. "I'm thinking of moving to a new city." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Really? Where?" Tom hesitated for a second before answering. "I don't know yet, but maybe somewhere warmer." Emily chuckled, setting her fork down. "That sounds nice." As they walked out of the cafe later that evening, the sky had turned dark. Emily glanced around and shivered slightly. Tom noticed her reaction. "Are you cold?" he asked. Emily shook her head, wrapping her arms around herself. "No, but this street looks a little creepy at night." They walked past an old, empty house. The windows were broken, and the walls looked old and forgotten. It stood alone, silent and dark. Emily nudged Tom playfully and grinned. "Aren't you thinking of calling him?" she joked, pointing at the empty house. Tom laughed, shaking his head. "No way. I don't believe in ghosts." Emily smirked, looking up at the sky. "But you do believe in good coffee and good friends, right?" Tom chuckled, sliding his hands into his pockets. "Yeah, that I do believe in." As they continued walking, the quiet night wrapped around them, making their conversation the only sound on the empty street.